Bienvenidos a la reunión comunitaria para la reapuntación al Chief Lipsky, al jefe de bomberos. Si usted necesita español, por favor póngalo en el chat. Mándeme un mensaje y le mandaré instrucciones de cómo podrá hacer la traducción. Gracias. Lee?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's community meeting with Fire Chief Aaron Lipsky. My name is Leon Todd, and I am the Executive Director of the City of Milwaukee Fire and Police Commission. On behalf of the entire Fire and Police Commission, I want to extend my thanks to all of you for participating in this important process. I also want to thank Chief Lipsky for taking the time out of his busy schedule to participate in this community meeting. I would now like to offer a brief overview of the FPC and the Fire Chief reappointment process that the FPC Board is currently engaged in. The Board of Fire and Police Commissioners is one of the oldest and most powerful civilian-led police and fire oversight agencies in the entire country. The FPC Board is comprised of 7 part-time commissioners who are assisted in their work by a full-time staff, which I have the privilege to manage as the Commission's Executive Director. The Commission has oversight authority concerning all aspects of the Fire and Police Department's operations, and it serves as the public's voice in fire and police matters. Among other responsibilities, the Commission is responsible for the hiring of every member of the Fire and Police Departments, including the Fire Chief. This last responsibility, hiring the Fire Chief, is one of the most important functions of the FPC Board. The Fire Chief of the Milwaukee Fire Department has a tremendous set of responsibilities. The Fire Chief is responsible for directing and managing the operations of the entire fire department, developing and administering policies and procedures, and overseeing the training and discipline of department members. Fire Chief Aaron Lipsky has extensive experience and tenure as a member of the Milwaukee Fire Department. He joined the department as a firefighter in 1997 and has steadily risen through the department's ranks. In October of 2020, following the retirement of former Fire Chief Mark Rolfing, the FPC Board appointed Aaron Lipsky as acting Fire Chief for the Milwaukee Fire Department. Then in May of 2021, the Board appointed Chief Lipsky as the permanent Fire Chief for the remainder of former Chief Rolfing's unexpired term, which ends on May 17, 2022. On March 3rd of this year, the FPC Board began the process for considering the reappointment of Chief Lipsky for a full 4-year term as Fire Chief. As part of this process, the FPC Board will interview Chief Lipsky in closed session during the executive session portion of its meeting on April 7th, 2022. Thereafter, at its next regular meeting on April 21st, the FPC Board will vote in open session on whether to reappoint Chief Lipsky for a new 4-year term as Fire Chief. Before that vote, we want to ensure that members of our community have an opportunity to hear directly from Chief Lipsky, ask him questions related to the role of Fire Chief, and provide input on the issues that matter most to you. We encourage interested community members to provide input regarding the reappointment of Chief Lipsky during the public comment portion of the FPC Board's regular meetings on April 7th and April 21st. Additional information regarding those meetings is available on the City of Milwaukee Legistar Systems website. And now I'm pleased to introduce our moderator for today's community meeting, Amanda Rodriguez. Ms. Rodriguez has dedicated herself to helping people with substance use disorders for over 12 years. She was instrumental in developing and managing Wisconsin's first 24/7 opioid treatment program in West Allis. Ms. Rodriguez currently serves as the Community Impact Manager for Community Medical Services, an organization dedicated to helping individuals who suffer from substance use disorders. She has excelled at developing collaborative community projects such as the Milwaukee Overdose Response Initiative, the Opioid Fatality Review Team, providing medication-assisted treatment supportive services to Milwaukee County jails, corrections, and prisons, supporting therapeutic courts, and educating the community around medication-assisted treatment. Ms. Rodriguez continues to identify gaps in services and find solutions for individuals struggling to navigate recovery systems. Ms. Rodriguez graduated from Alverno College with a bachelor's in psychological drug counseling. She also graduated from Concordia University with a Master's of Science in Education with an emphasis on counseling. She currently holds a clinical substance abuse counselor license, as well as a clinical supervisors and training license. Ms. Rodriguez, thank you for being here with us today and for moderating this community meeting.
Thank you for having me, Lee. And I already saw a question in here, and I will answer that for you, Andre, in 1 second. So, and it'll be answered within the following, what I'm about to say, sorry. Okay, so you can use the raise your hand feature by clicking the hand button that is located, I believe, within your toolbox there. And then I will call on you once we are ready for questions. We will take care of unmuting you. You can also ask questions within that toolbox as well. And I will go through and answer those questions when it is time for that. So feel free to put as many questions as you like to ask, Fire Chief Aaron Lipsky, and we will try to get to all of those questions. We do ask that each question only take about 2 minutes, just because we have about 64 attendees right now and only have until 7. So I will go on to start to introduce our Fire Chief, Aaron Lipsky. So Fire Chief Lipsky has served the city of Milwaukee for over 25 years, joining the Milwaukee Fire Department in 1997, which was the same recruit class as his older brother, Daniel. Lipsky is a 4th-generation Milwaukee firefighter and a Milwaukee resident. Prior to joining, he served for several years as an EMT basic with an urban private ambulance service. Lipsky holds a bachelor's degree in communication, minoring in Africology, and a master's degree in public administration, both from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. Chief Lipsky has filled every rank, rising from a firefighter to heavy equipment operator, then on to the company's officer position of a lieutenant and captain. Appointed to battalion chief in 2010, Lipsky covered operational battalions prior to being tasked with running the department's division of construction and maintenance. Responsible for overseeing the department's catalog of its facilities, all equipment and purchasing, and the entire Milwaukee Fire Department's fleet. Following this, Lipsky was assigned as a deputy chief to the citywide commander role, filling this role for 6.5 years. Lipsky expanded the footprint and operational efficiencies of the office. In 2019, Lipsky was promoted to the assistant chief, overseeing the department's support bureau, responsible for all budget and finance concerns, working alongside elected officials and the Fire and Police Commission, labor relations, investigations, and discipline, all technical services and dispatch, as well as fleet and facilities. In late 2020, Lipsky was approved to be the acting fire chief for the Milwaukee Fire Department. Lipsky was sworn in as the fire chief in June of 2021. Lipsky chairs the American Lung Association's local leadership board in Wisconsin, as well as the Milwaukee County Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition, better known as MCSAP. He also sits on the board of directors for the American Red Cross of Southeastern Wisconsin. Lipsky is happily married to his wife of 21 years, Krista. They enjoy spending time together as well as traveling to watch their daughter Bella play her club volleyball around the nation. So now I present to you the Fire Chief of the Milwaukee Fire Department, Chief Aaron Lipsky.
Thank you so much, Amanda. My name is Aaron Lipsky, Chief of the Milwaukee Fire Department, and I'm gonna just give you a very brief PowerPoint presentation because I'd like to get to any questions that I might be able to answer for the folks on board here. I'm excited to see that we've got 66 people logged in. The entire point of this is to get community engagement, and I think having that number is really a great thing. So without further ado, I'm going to begin a very brief PowerPoint presentation. And Amanda, if you could tip me off when that screen is visible as intended.
Yep, it's visible for you now.
Excellent, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So I'm going to take you on a very brief tour of matters critical to the Milwaukee Fire Department and certainly matters that interweave with decisions that I have made and that I'm continuing to make in the leadership of this fire department. So this is a very, very involved, busy org chart of the Milwaukee Fire Department. No fret, I will not be going through every box on here. What I want you to notice is second from the top where it says Fire Chief. I want you to understand that in the city of Milwaukee, with the Fire Police Commission that Director Todd described just prior to me getting going here, you can see that the Fire Chief answers directly to the Board of Fire and Police Commissioners. It is certainly interacting with and doing everything in its power to align with policy decisions made at the city level. But we have a lot of irons in the fire, no pun intended, with this Milwaukee Fire Department right now. And I'm going to walk you through some of our highlights. So coming out of my office, I've taken some steps to deal with some very, very heavy hitting issues that quite frankly have lingered for quite some time. And it's long past overdue for these things to be addressed aggressively. So job one, I speak with residents very, very regular, and what I hear from them over and over and over again, when I ask the question, what do you want your fire department to be doing? It's exactly what most people think the fire department does. They want us to respond. They want us to respond rapidly. They don't want to wait. And they want us to save lives, put out fires. And they want us to be extremely skilled at doing that. And they want us to be decent servant leaders as we do that. And that's a tall order, but we're up to the task. So I got to maximize what I have available to me in that pursuit. Good response times, reducing deaths, injuries, property loss. And that's not just on the response end, that's certainly on the prevention end in both the fire and EMS spaces. That's on the operational end. The other end of this then, but so related, is a bevy of racial equity initiatives. We are charter members on the fire department of the Racial Equity and Inclusion Leadership Team led by CIO Nikki Purvis, and we're working to advance principles from the GARE structure in the MFD zone work group on diversity, equity, inclusion, and diversity, equity, and inclusion in recruitment, testing, hiring, and promotion. Do not try to make an acronym out of that because it's not really going to work. However, the work being done in that work group is I can safely say I've been involved in these sorts of initiatives going back quite some time, and they have always started up and then they've petered out. They start up and they peter out. That's not acceptable. And so we've got to keep driving on both the internal employee group population and on the service delivery end. We have to be looking at how we can increase our diversity. And I'm going to get into some of those numbers, I'm certain, later on. But it's not excellent. And it makes no sense for me to stand here and try to make that sound better than it is. We are making improvements. We are working to that end, but we're not where we need to be yet. And then on the service delivery end, there is no question whatsoever that we can enhance effectiveness and safety with a more recognizable, more comfortable response force. As we continue working in that work group that I just described, I want you to understand that's not just within the Milwaukee Fire Department, us bouncing ideas around in an echo chamber. We have some very, very esteemed members from other city departments. Nikki Purvis has agreed to help me with this. Equal Rights Commissioner Tony Snell Rodriguez has agreed to help me with this. Director Todd, we've had several commissioners on board. Commissioner Ramey is presently sitting on this committee with me. And then outside of that, we've got people from the community who have a demonstrated interest and performance in this area. We are never going to make progress if we just keep throwing numbers back and forth at each other. The numbers are important. That gives you a metric by which to measure success or failure or progress or lack thereof. But the numbers are that is just a symptom of larger issues. I am proud to report we're developing the recommendations right now. And so we've already got consensus in this very broad, diverse group of people. We have consensus on some real recommendations that we believe are going to make effective change in this regard. So I'm going to rip through these pretty quick because I was told I have 10 minutes for this portion and I do not want to run too long. We're all still dealing with COVID. It feels as if the world is opening back up and boy, it can't come quick enough. But we are still very, very aware of and wary of any additional variants coming across. And we have mechanisms in place. We've gotten very good at turning on and turning off all these different protections and systems, as well as the extraordinary work our folks have done in testing and vaccination out in the communities. The fire department has offered its services and has been taken up and has been quite effective, reaching across and pulling together across sector, across agency, across departments, across jurisdictional lines, pulling together systems so that government and emergency services and agencies can respond better and without duplication and redundancy, but in a manner that best serves the end users. I have a host of examples related to that, but it all comes down to who is talking to who and how are they communicating, and ultimately who's making the decisions. It's a system fire departments function quite well in, and we've started to spread that as much as people will listen to it and engage in it, as we've come through quite a long time of civil unrest, and we've come through COVID and everything that has kind of foisted upon society, active shooter situations, mass casualties. This is a very real benefit that you have all of your leaders collaborating like this. We continue to work to merge the fire department's dispatch center with the police department's dispatch center. At the same time, we're onboarding new technologies in the 911 end and in our computer-aided dispatch end. And they're going to form into a third department under the oversight of the Fire and Police Commission called the Department of Emergency Communication. This has been a very long road, and I feel as if we're just starting to get over the top of the mountain on this. It's exciting stuff. We continue to collaborate with every other fire department within Milwaukee County. There's 12 or 13 others of them, as well as fire departments outside of the county, but that border the city of Milwaukee. This has been an enormous benefit for both the Milwaukee Fire Department and for each of these other fire departments. And speaking to my next bullet point here, I would be remiss if I didn't thank the other fire departments who, when we experienced an extreme and unexpected loss of provider within one of our ambulance services in the city for private ambulance transports, we picked that up with our paramedic units and as much as we could, and the neighboring communities stepped up without a hitch, and it put a lot of strain on their systems, and that was a real demonstration to the city of Milwaukee that there's enormous value in that partnership. That private ambulance company situation, we are also extremely proud that we have built a system that is regaining health. We're not there yet, but we have decompressed some of this strain that I just described, and we're getting the remaining two private ambulance companies to operational health. They're getting themselves back to operational health, but we're doing everything we can to assist, and we're using a more ecosystem, system theory approach to it. It's not us versus them because they're a private entity and we're a public entity. This is about outcomes, and this is about taking care of patients. I'm going to go through these slides very quick. I just want to say that how proud I am of the Milwaukee firefighters and paramedics that I am lucky and privileged enough to lead right now, because we have been reducing our frontline protection to this city for quite some time. And I only took this chart back to 2008, but we've We've lost a number of engine companies represented by the black line, a number of ladder trucks, and the paramedic units and battalion chiefs have stayed mostly flat during that time. But what does that translate to? For the engine companies, the blue lines on the left indicate the raw totals of our runs that engine companies go on. So you can see annually we've jumped from mid 60s up to almost 90,000 just for the engine companies. And that takes the average on a per engine company from about 2,000 to over 3,100. We're getting in some dangerous area, and that's just an average. Truck companies, you see that exact same trend. That's the ladder truck companies. Paramedic units, exact same trend. And battalion chiefs, similar trend. Their numbers haven't changed too much, but they are increasing, and we're responding to that. I just want to point that out because we're presently doing everything we can to keep the fire department personnel as healthy and satisfied with their job as we possibly can. I just feel like I can't do that quick enough because the call volume just keeps hammering us. So that's a very, very broad stroke look at some of my primary issues, initiatives, a couple things I'm proud of. And that is what I have for you. And Amanda, I'm ready for some questions.
All right, so I am first going to start with Senator Lena Taylor. So if we can unmute her, she has a prior engagement and would really like to ask you a question first.
Excellent.
Am I unmuted?
Go ahead.
Wonderful. Well, I have to say, I am also really coming less for a question, but to say I am certain that you know that I am very vocal in the community, chief.
Amen.
And when there are things that I don't like, I am the first to run to the front lines to speak to that. So I wanted today to be on the front lines to run to say how much I appreciate the work that you have done in the city of Milwaukee. I feel that your work with the ambulance companies, your work with the EMS, and your work with community outreach is frankly, from my perspective, been unprecedented from what I've seen in my few 55 years here in this city. To see you on the front lines of community outreach means everything. If I can have that across various departments in the city of Milwaukee, we would be in a totally different place. Mm-hmm. Sir, your work with the issue of fentanyl and fentanyl testing strips and your support in that issue is part of the reason we were able to change the law and make it where it was no longer illegal for individuals to use those testing strips. So I had to, in the midst of being triple booked at this time, I had to make a point to make sure that everyone with the Fire and Police Commission and the 60 other people that are on this call all know that I am totally supportive of the work that you're doing, Chief. And I now hear that you're doing work connected to agriculture. I'm like, are you just trying to make me totally love the Chief? Okay. So you are doing a great job, sir. And I wanted to make sure that I took the time to put my voice, should I say, towards showing support for you. And thank you for allowing me to be one of the first ones to speak. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Can I reply, Amanda?
You can reply in about 30 seconds. No, go ahead. You can reply. Senator,
I don't blush often, but boy, your words mean everything. I think we look around when we get in leadership spots. You look around at people that stick to their guns and people that say the thing. And I've always held you in extremely high regard for that. So your words mean everything here tonight. Thank you.
Truly my pleasure. I hope everything goes well. We would be really ridiculously bad if we let you go. So we need to not only keep you, but give them a raise, everybody. Give them a raise. Bye-bye.
you, Senator Taylor.
Thank you.
All right, so what I will be doing is I will be toggling back and forth between the questions that are in the chat for those individuals that have their hand raised, and then also between the questions that were posed at registration. So I'll take another, let's see if there's any hands that are raised. Let me go through this. Okay, let's unmute Andre Ellis.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay, great. It's an honor and a pleasure to be on the call, and thank you for taking my question or statement that I'm going to make. I recently met Chief Aaron Lipsky at a home safe event that they did at North Cod Neighborhood House, where they were expressing to the community how to do fire prevention within the home. I had some very serious questions there as it related to the people that live on the bottom, that are in underserved communities that may not be totally educated on how to read, how to write, and understand smoke detectors and things like that. The chief answered those questions very well. But the other thing that I want to say is not so much a question, as Senator Taylor alluded to agriculture. Most people that know me know that I am an urban gardener, and I use urban gardening as a way of working with young Black men in the community, particularly those that need to find themselves and find a place in themselves. And it was the chief that came to me recently with a parcel of land that is adjacent to Firehouse 5, located at 13th and Reservoir, which we acquired, chief, and we signed the lease today with the city of Milwaukee, and we're moving forward with that. I would like to know, chief, as it relates to agriculture, how much more would the fire department like to do? Because agriculture and good food and the access to good food and the programming that can come out of it can be helpful in the decrease of violence, the increase of jobs, the mental health issues and mental wellness issues that need to be looked at in our community. How much are you going to have your firefighters and different ones volunteering in the community, in the gardens, and in efforts such as that?
Excellent. Andre, thank you so much. So I think you and I touched on this in an earlier conversation. And I would really, really love to have firefighters that utilize this firehouse and other firefighters from around the city interact in a very active way in either a mentorship program, because I have to assume all the firefighters aren't just natural green thumbs at planting stuff and growing stuff. So they'd be learning alongside people. As we discussed, that fire station is typically our health and wellness station. It's not typically an operational fire station. We use that for health and wellness, and a huge component of that is mental health and wellness. And I have heard from a lot of people, yourself included, and people associated with many of your projects, that there's a very real healing that can occur when you get your hands in the soil. And I think, and this may be a too ideal or romanticized of an image, but I picture, you know, an off-duty firefighter kneeling next to a neighborhood youth and planting stuff and making something grow and producing something. Perhaps as therapy or healing for the firefighters, because it's very easy to get cynical right now. The numbers are through the roof, and the violence and the pain. I think it would be an excellent way for firefighters to reconnect with the community in a non-trauma, perhaps a trauma healing environment. So you asked me the question, Andre, but you already know I have to say yes to anything that you ask me, because you're just that good, Andre. I'm blessed to know you.
Okay, chief, and then I'll say this finally, if you can still hear me. With that said, firefighters have to be dealing with some very traumatic things themselves. And as you talked about the healing that happens for the young people or the people in the community, I think that having the firefighters engaged in this way, it will be a relief factor for them as well. But answer for me, what are you going to do to help educate the underserved community in fire prevention, even more than home safe? Because, you know, I told you about that red arrow by the hush button on the smoke detectors, because sometimes when people burn toast, they run out of the house with no clothes on, thinking there's a big fire, when really they could unmute that button, or they can hush that button to prevent it, and then get some directions on what to do next.
So thank you. And absolutely, we will continue doing what we've done, which is getting out and getting smoke alarms in homes. If I can get slightly technical for 1 second, if Amanda will give me the leeway here.
You get like 1 minute, because we got some
right.
questions we got to answer.
All right, I'm going.
All right.
There's a tiny button in the middle of the smoke alarms we install. It's called a hush button. So steam from a shower or the burnt toast Andre talks about, that goes off and sets the smoke alarm off. We've run into too many fires, especially fires where we've had fatalities, unfortunately, where we find that smoke alarm in a kitchen drawer or in a different room in a cabinet because it had gotten irritating. And that hush button in the middle, that shuts that alarm sensitivity off for 15 minutes. So you can let that smoke kind of dissipate, but you don't have to take the smoke alarm down. The problem is that's up on a ceiling 7 or 8 feet above you. And that button, there's not like real clear signage as to what it is. Andre had an idea to put labels on there, or a little paint mark or something, so people would know exactly where to press to increase the saving of lives. As far as educating the communities, we have lots of ideas. As you know, we're working with Department of Neighborhood Services on the electrical fire situation. And that I can only see that growing. It's been an excellent relationship working with them. We're just going to keep doing it.
Thank you, Chief Lipsky. So now we have a question that came in from a Matthew McDonald. He says, working with you over the past 8 months, you have shown repeated genuine concern about the mental health of your firefighters and staff. Why is this so important for you, and how do you plan to continue to focus on this?
Excellent question. Thank you, Matt. You're 100% correct. Our firefighters and our paramedics, I think about this time last year, I'd have been saying, yeah, well, I think maybe we're going to start seeing some burnout. I think we're seeing the burnout right now. We are seeing compassion fatigue. We are seeing the effects of the things that our firefighters and paramedics are looking at every day, many times in some cases. We're seeing what that's doing to people. It's not good enough anymore. It's not good enough for a fire department or a city to ask its firefighters and paramedics to just keep grinding at a pace that's unheralded in our history without some sort of support and care for what that's doing. And this isn't out of, nobody's done this to us, or there's not an enemy here. There's no spite involved. This has just happened. We are all of a sudden outmatched. The resource strain, call volumes are up. It's having an effect, and we have a lot of resources internal, and we're certainly working to partner with external resources such as yours at Next 18, where we can get people out of this space, back into the garden, perhaps out on a golf course, to begin that healing process. We would like people to get to the end of their career healthy and satisfied, and not beaten down, broken, empty shells of the person they were when they started. And quite literally, I fear that may be where we're headed. So yeah, my commitment is real to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Now we have a question that was posed prior to registration. It says, hey, Chief, I was wondering when MFD will be opening applications up to the public. Thank you, and I wish you the best of luck.
Oh, very good. So we've got two different, we've got a number of different ways, actually. We have an ongoing 911 operator process, telecommunicator recruitment, which is very important for us now with the Department of Emergency Communication, you heard me mention. And we have a never-ending need for other support services, which I think I think most people don't think about that with the fire department, but we've got carpenters, fabricators, welders, bunch of mechanics. We've got an excellent support staff. We need people that are good with accounting. We're doing our best to run this like a business. In the field operations, there's two ways you can come in. You can come in through the cadet program, or you can get on a general firefighter eligibility list. The cadet class is for, it's targeted at Milwaukee high school students coming out of high school, graduating, and then that following year going in. And so we do that recruitment and that hiring once a year. And that occurs, I guess we can say that that's a perennial, that's happening all year long. We are working off of the old fire eligibility list, and we are in talks right now about getting another process going. For us to do that properly, especially in terms of some of the diversity and equity and inclusion challenges we have to do solid, intentional, deliberate, real recruitment efforts, both on our end and the commission's end, and that takes time. So we can't just flip the switch and start it. So I don't know the answer for the general fire yet.
Thank you. And another question we have is, has the Milwaukee Fire Department adequately addressed issues of diversity and inclusion? And has it created a plan to find and hire more Black men and women?
So two questions here.
Yeah,
it is. If I have to give myself a score on this right now, or give the department a score, no, we have not adequately addressed the issues. We are addressing them, but we're not there yet. I don't want to sound dismal about it, but we're not there yet. We're doing the work. It's real systemic and cultural change within the microcosm of society that is the fire department. I think it's an excellent spot to start because we're starting with natural born leaders. We're starting with natural born team players. We're starting with people who, regardless of their differences, perceived or real, sitting around that table in the morning in the fire station, will run headlong into a burning building, knowing nothing about who's on the other side of the door, what their background is, with the people around them with all the different backgrounds, who they'll quite literally put their life on the line. So there is a lot of ingredients here that make this a very, very ripe proving ground for a lot of this. Have we created a plan to find and hire more Black men and women? Absolutely, we have. We have a recruitment section. We just added a position this year. The recruitment section has been around a while. We added a position to it so that they can touch more folks. That is second to none. I'm not even kidding you when I tell you that we get reached out to by fire departments from around the nation about how do we do this. It's part of the metrics we're putting together in the work group. And I want to, don't ever be under the impression this is all me doing this. Assistant Chief Josh Parrish, Deputy Chief Sharon Purifoy. We've got Lieutenant Phil Colcroft, Firefighter Doran Kemp. We've got a host of people that also help them with this recruitment effort. And they have designed a program that literally takes recruiting to where the people are, not 10 minutes before the recruiting, but a year and a half prior. We're in middle school in some cases, having these connections with young adults. And the numbers they turn on the recruitment end are exhilarating. They're fantastic. And what we need to do now, and we're already doing, and let's just make no bones about it. Specifically, not only, but a very focused part of this is getting more African-American men and women on the Milwaukee Fire Department. So we need to make sure everybody in that community or other communities we need more of, we need them to know that this is even an option. I'm stunned to find out how many people just figured this wasn't for them. So we do have a plan. It is underway. There are other links in what I guess I'll call the pipeline to the point of a person being hired, where we are identifying little snags and narrow points. That's a huge part of our mission, is to make that so that not that everybody gets through, I don't have that many positions, but that people are not being discriminately reduced based on a specific demographic as they move forward. We want it to be the ultimate fair process, the equitable process. So hopefully that answers. I took a little longer because it was 2 questions.
That's okay. That's okay. It was a lot to answer. Now we have a hand raised. What was the name again? Tony Snell. So if we can unmute him so he can ask his question. Tony, are you there?
Muted.
Oh,
Oh wait, you were, there you go.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you to the Fire and Police Commission. And thank you, Chief, and everybody in the community for this opportunity. Chief, we've known each other for a while, and we've had conversations over the years, and even before my participation. First of all, I want to be clear. I'm chair of the Equal Rights Commission for the city, but I'm speaking personally at this moment. I'm not speaking for the commission. But I serve on the task force, your DEI task force. I've been with you on the racial equity leadership team, and you've been a model in both of those, in that you're honest, you're active, and you're a participant. You're not just checking a list off. And I've been in this space for many, many years as an advocate, and you're leading in this space, and I appreciate that. Well, and one thing that's so important, you're not only leading in this space, you're having to inspire your own department members and colleagues and let them know. And the other is to get buy-in from the Fire and Police Commission. And with everything you have going on now, and the added calls and the stress going on with your department, there's been a systemic stress with members of the department of different backgrounds and experiences, obviously, that you're aggressively tackling. And I quote you in saying that because you have, and I can honestly attest to that. I've got a question. We ask a lot of our firefighters and paramedics every day, what can the community do to support you and your team and your efforts moving forward? What can we do? What are those things that we can get buy-in from the community to help back? You've been out there. I've seen you in the community. So what can we do?
wow. Thank you. You know, I'm prone to jump in and talk about, like, check your smoke alarms and practice an escape plan from your house and go to your doctor and get a physical and call us when you need us. I don't think that's what you're asking me. All those things are true. Tony, I feel like what I want to ask for is a little bit of grace, because we are human beings. We do make mistakes, and try as we might, sometimes with our best efforts, it just doesn't go the way anybody would have preferred it would go, either in the operations and out in the field, or interpersonal stuff, internal or between the department and the public. We try to take, like, very deliberate, swift action when those things happen, to take corrective measures and improve and grow. I guess I would ask for grace, and at the same time, I would say, if you're interacting with anybody from the Milwaukee Fire Department and you think it does not meet the expectation of a servant leader mindset or somebody that cares, let us know. And understand, we will pursue that. I don't, that may sound like a crazy thing to say, like, hey, call us with your complaints, but I don't know if most people believe, I just don't know if most people believe that when they call somebody with an issue that it really gets dug into. And I guess I'll just tell you that we can't improve our system entirely without that community feedback. So give us some grace, measure that error or that perceived situation in real time for yourself, and let us know. Just let us know. Everything doesn't mean someone's going to get terminated, or everything doesn't rise to that level. There's a lot of growth that can happen if we're made aware of it. So those would be the two things, Tony.
Thank you, Chief Lipsky. Okay, so let's go to some of the questions that are posed prior to registration. Overdoses in the city of Milwaukee have hit record numbers. What prevention-based initiatives is the Milwaukee Fire Department of, if any?
A ton of them. We have the Milwaukee Opioid Response Initiative, which is a collaborative, and I have to recognize the facilitator here, Amanda Rodriguez, with Community Medical Services for a very recent one. And I won't list each one and get into huge detail, but we're now distributing what are called HOPE kits, which provide nasal Narcan, fentanyl test strips, instructions, resource cards, a CPR mouth mask, so in the hopes of keeping people alive who are gripped with addiction and either take a hot load or too much in the course of their usage. This is, we are underwater right now with this overdose pandemic. It eclipses the numbers of every other also horrible thing that we're impacted by in this city. That MORI program makes a direct connection. So aside from these HOPE kits, that MORI team reaches out within 24 or 48 hours after we have a suspected overdose. They reach back out and they try to encourage or ask that person if they're ready to go get some more aggressive supportive care to try to get them sober. And that's, if you think about a fire engine and a paramedic unit pulling up, and then we have really limited options. We can just take that person to an emergency room. That emergency room, that's not really even the main thing that person needs at that moment. We need to get them to somebody that will provide mental health care or other supportive cares, medically assisted treatment. And these spots are starting to pop up, and these networks are starting to work together. We're not the only fire department doing these things. I'd like to think we're doing them pretty darn good. And on the other end, we've been involved in the legislation, and you heard Senator Taylor talk about before about getting that fentanyl test strip issue, getting that through in this state government right now, where you look at, sometimes you go, uh-oh, it's just not moving. There are people who are willing to work together to save lives. This was a perfect example of that. So we're involved in the background on those issues. I sit on the Milwaukee County Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition as the chair, and I've been involved with this group for a number of years. And this is a coalition of healthcare providers, nonprofits, public sector, private sector, and all coming together with this aim of how do we prevent? And that's the heart of your question, is how do we prevent?
Mm-hmm.
And it is a tough problem to solve. But we're going to stay at it. We don't have a choice. We have to stay at it. It's a low watermark right now. We have to keep people alive. And we're going to keep at it.
Thank you. Okay, so we have another question here. What do you believe the biggest challenges facing the Milwaukee Fire Department is?
Well, I can't look at it in a vacuum as just one problem, because we have two major problems that have hampered our ability to really propel forward for generations. And I've discussed them briefly already. We have a resource demand on our personnel that far outmatches the amount of resources we have. That adds up to the burnout I already described in great detail. It adds up to longer response times. It adds up to certainly not better outcomes for people on the other end of the 911 call. And the second thing, and these are my two biggest challenges. It deals with the diversity, equity, and inclusion. Those two things, they're in slightly different but interrelated spaces here at the fire department. That's my two.
Okay. And I'm going to go through and read some comments in here. So there are more comments than questions. Let me just get back up to the top of this. And this comes in from a Peggy Williams Smith. Chief Lipsky has done a great job of reaching out to the community while protecting those who protect us. And then we have one from Chris Anderson. He says, I apologize, I had to jump on late. My name is Chris Anderson, and I am the Director of Operations for Bell Ambulance. I've been blessed to work as an EMT for Milwaukee for more than 20 years and have worked with several fire chiefs. On behalf of the entire staff and management of Bell Ambulance, we thank Chief Lipsky for his leadership. We have never had such a strong relationship with the Milwaukee Fire Department administration, and directly thanks to Chief Lipsky.
Thank you.
Okay, and what was the next one? I think that was part of his. Okay, and then we have one on here from a Dave Seeger. Thank you, Mrs. Rodriguez, for hosting this. Truly an insight to an individual who is leading one of the most critical agencies in the city of Milwaukee and is an example to the rest of the country. The Milwaukee Fire Department is on a cutting edge with the leadership of Chief Aaron Lipsky. This was excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
And then we do have a hand raised. I believe it says Carrie Dyer. I hope I said that right. If we can unmute him so he can ask his question, please. And I do want to remind you, we only have 7 minutes left of this community meeting as well.
That went fast.
I know. So if we can unmute Carrie so that way the individual can talk, that would be great.
Carrie, if you can just go ahead and unmute yourself, you are self-muted, and feel free to ask your question.
Yeah, Carrie, if you want to type your question in the answers into the questions tab, and then I can ask it for you. It seems as if your mic will not unmute. I will go on to an Ann Wilson. Go ahead and unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you so much for even hosting this, for a man who I think is really a wonderful person. I had the opportunity when I was on the Fire and Police Commission, as well as before that, to work with him. I've always known him to be a fair person with the community, a person who really cared. Now, did he do everything perfect? No, he didn't. But the one thing I can say is if it was not right, he did everything within his power to get it right. Excuse me. And I would miss this opportunity to come and speak for a man who I worked with, who I truly, truly believe is the best person to lead the fire department in these times. Thank you so much for allowing me to say something.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Carrie, would you like to try to unmute one more time? Because I don't see your question posted yet. All right, so we have about 5 minutes left, and I will continue to ask the questions that were posed prior to registration, unless somebody else would like to raise their hand or type a question into the questions tab. Oh wait, it looks like it's coming. Something's coming from a, okay, there's not a name. It just says, thank you, Amanda, for moderating, and thank you, Chief Lipsky, for exemplifying what is an inspiring change leader while role modeling what is a servant leader for our community. I hope the City of Milwaukee Fire and Police Commission reappoints Chief Lipsky for another term, as we need more leaders like him, and he is committed to reframing the narrative of our community through intentionality, equity, inclusion, diversity, and etc. Don't know who it came from, so I don't know who you can't think anybody.
I believe that comment came in from Mr. Eric Kennedy.
Okay, there it goes. Yeah, from Eric Kennedy.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric.
All right, let's see if anybody else's hands are raised. I don't see any other hands raised at this time, so I will go into answering another question. And yes, Andre, that my dogs are deciding to join me. Sorry. This is the perks of working from home. All right, I think this is a great question to almost end this on. What is a rewarding experience without giving identifying information that has left an impact on you and how you perform your duties as an officer? But as a firefighter.
Well, I've had a ton of experiences that have just hit me and almost taken me off my feet that I've thought about a lot later. It's a process folks in emergency response go through. You get kind of knocked off your feet and then you think about what could you have done differently. I had an experience as a young firefighter. I was working with a lieutenant who I respected quite a bit, but I was literally brand new, but he treated me real well and he showed me the ropes. And we showed up at the front door for a very sensitive emergency medical call that people would be embarrassed probably to share with other people. And now we're all standing on the porch with our EMS kits ready to go in. And this lieutenant was standing here. I was standing here. The door opens, the front door opens, and something about how my face looked set this lady off. And she was very focused on me and why I had a not great look on my face, and I didn't care. And I just stood there and I didn't engage her. I didn't come at her. I stepped back a little bit and I said, I'm sorry. We're just here to help. And then we went in, took care of the stuff on the run, and we came back. And that lieutenant pulled me aside afterwards and said, Aaron, you really handled that well. Might seem like a small thing, but that affirmation that how we talk with the people in our community and how we respect that we're showing up during the worst times. So emotions are high typically. It was, I don't know, it just, and I'm not ever going to sell myself as perfect at this, but I really try. And I think it's so important that we give people a little bit of space. There's a lot of tension right now. That had a huge impact on, and he probably didn't even think of, that was just another day for that officer, but he seared something in on me that day that was important.
Awesome. And we do have a comment here for the last minute left from a Kim Guerrero. Chief Lipsky has a passion for serving Milwaukee and making a positive impact in our community. He truly walks the walk that he talks. He must continue as our fire chief. And it won't let me go. Okay, he must continue as our fire chief who is always engaged.
Thank you, Kim.
So that is it. I want to thank everyone for attending and being a part of this community meeting. I want to thank you, Chief Aaron Lipsky, for being on the hot seat tonight and allowing all these questions to be asked and answering them to the best of your ability. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. If I can steal 15 seconds. Thank you for hosting this and thank you for making all the technology work. And thank you to everybody that came out. I'm just so happy we had a bunch of people on the call. And if it does not ring true, or I haven't said it explicitly, I'd very much like to be your next fire chief. Appreciate the consideration from the Board of Commissioners. So thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. And there you're getting all these praises. Nice job. Thank you. Love you, Chief.
Thank you.
Sounds like you're walking the walk over here.
Thank you, Amanda.
You're welcome.